Look into this dark, unforgiving glass eye, the mesh of the microphone. Tell it your deepest thoughts, hopes, fears, and desires. We will take these emotions, turn them, and feed them back to you, for we have goals, goals that your feelings will assist. This is how we rule. From the shadows, playing your emotions like puppet strings, we lead you to destinations that we have prepared, and you willingly oblige, thinking these decisions to be your own. When you do as we wish, we reward you, and when you go against us, we punish you. In a million subtle ways, we influence your supposedly free choice. By this method, we rule over a population convinced that they are the masters of their own destiny. Welcome to the Empire of Lies.
Yes, welcome indeed back to the Empire of Lies. We took a break last week. I had a rather unfortunate ear infection and Chris was going on vacation. So we just decided to take a week off, especially because there was a YouTube strike involved on my channel. It's gone now. So we are back. This week is going to be the culminating episode in the, I guess you could say the season or the short series about propaganda. We're going to wrap up with a sixth generational warfare with an excellent presentation by Chris. It's a little longer than normal, so the things I'm going to share will be a little shorter than normal. But other than that, be prepared for a lengthy, interesting stream, which is mostly his writing, a little peppering of my ideas, and you can find the inspirational links and the data links to this in the description of the video wherever you're listening to this. For whatever reason, even though I tried it 3 or 4 different ways, the links wouldn't take on YouTube. They just wouldn't encode, like they wouldn't be hyperlinks. I tried 3 or 4 different things and nothing worked. So if you want them from YouTube, since YouTube apparently sucks now, you're just going to have to copy paste them from the description. But they work fine on Rumble and Odyssey. I don't know. Anyway. So that's all of that out of the way. I hope you guys are ready to talk about exactly why I chose the title "Conscripted at Birth," and I believe by the about halfway or maybe 3/4 of the way through the stream, you'll understand why I chose that. So, Chris, is there any preface you want to give this presentation before we get started here?
Not really. Basically, some of you who are military or security studies heads may be familiar with the ideas of generations of warfare, which was primarily popularized by a guy called Lind. The idea of 4th and 5th generational warfare. There's, much sort of dispute as to whether, 5th generational warfare has even been a thing. But, I had this sort of inspiration and I thought, well, 6th generational warfare. If you're a security studies major, don't get at me, bro. No one can really give a good definition for 5th generational warfare either. So I hereby claim the ground for 6th generational warfare. This just sort of became quite a lengthy sort of piece that I wrote, and I don't know. I think it's pretty cool. I hope you guys enjoy it.
I've already read it twice. It's good. I made a few of my own notes. So before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone, this is more of a serious educational stream. We're not going to be taking breaks to look at links or laugh at memes or anything, and I won't be stopping to respond to paid messages during the stream, but we will still be addressing them at the end. So during the stream, towards the end, I will put up the banner to remind you guys to get your paid chats in. You can contribute to the stream via Entropy, which is what I prefer the most. You can also send rants on Rumble as well as hyper chats on Odyssey. You can send short chats via Cash App and PayPal. And if you are a subscriber on Subscribestar, you can send tips that way as well. And of course, like always, I would deeply appreciate it if you would support me monthly. It means so much. You can have your name included in that awesome intro video by Lomax Designs at the beginning of all my streams, as well as on the outro card at the end of all my pre-recorded content. So I would deeply appreciate that if you'd like to financially support what I do. Speaking of all of the paid chats we bring in on this stream specifically for Empire of Lies, I share with my friend Chris here because he does the lion's share of the research work, and I just want to help support him too. So you can also support him by following him on all of his sites, and of course supporting him by buying his merch and that kind of thing over on his channels. And he does the happening twice a week. So with that being said, Chris, is there anything else you want to say or shield before we get started?
Not really. Just check out my twice weekly news show, Happening TV. It's just sort of news and funny memes and sort of cute animals to soothe the eyes. One of the comfiest chats on Rumble and also on Odyssey. I have been reliably informed, so check it out. Newsfist.net.
Happening is good stuff. I'm there most of the time myself. So I'm going to be sharing links in the chat while you get started. Do you want us to stay on embiggened view, or do you want to move to the other one?
Yeah, let's move to in small in view, shall we? And we can use this kind of like funky graphic.
I like this. This is fun. This is a good graphic for what we're going to be talking about. This is good.
Although actually, I'll move to this one to start.
Okay. And I'm going to mute myself and let you take it away while I share links in the chat. Take it away, Chris.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so fourth generational warfare, which is a concept, the idea of generational warfare publicized by Lind. I'm not sure of his real name. Just a little bit of background from Wikipedia. Fourth generation warfare, 4GW, is conflict characterized by a blurring of the distinction between war and politics and of the distinction between combatants and civilians. The term was first used in 1980 by a team of United States analysts, including William S. Lind, to describe warfare's return to a decentralized form. In terms of generational modern warfare, the fourth generation signifies the nation-state's loss of their near monopoly on combat forces, returning to modes of conflict common in pre-modern times. The simplest definition includes any war in which one of the major participants is not a state, but rather a violent non-state actor. Classical examples of this type of conflict, such as the slave uprising under Spartacus, predate the modern concept of warfare. Fifth generation warfare is warfare that is conducted primarily through non-kinetic military action, such as social engineering, misinformation, cyber attacks, along with emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence and fully autonomous systems. Fifth generation warfare has been described as a war of information and perception. There is no widely agreed upon definition of fifth generation warfare, and it has been rejected by some scholars, including Lind, who was the original theorist of fourth generation warfare. Okay, so it was Lind who did fourth generation. Okay, so to summarize, essentially, fourth generation warfare is non-state actors, cultures clashing as opposed to states. Fifth generation, the blurring of civilian and military forces, heavy use of psychological warfare, hard operating environment due to blurring, intense optics considerations, but there are still kinetic actions. Now, a really, really good example of this, for example, is groups like Hamas, for example, where they are not only non-state actors, but they are blurred and indistinguishable from the civilian population. Sixth generation warfare is an outgrowth of the fifth. It has similar aspects in that the combatants cannot be distinguished from the civilian population, and there is heavy use of psychological warfare. However, in a sixth generational warfare environment, all of the parts of the population you are fighting that could resort to any kind of kinetic action have been disabled. So you are essentially fighting mass psychological war with an entire, mostly civilian population. Therefore, sixth generation warfare is basically a psychological insurgency where the only tools left to the oppressed population are psychological warfare or non-violent resistance, which may also be cracked down upon. Due to information and surveillance saturation, kinetic operations basically cease. Sixth generation warfare is a form of insurgency without kinetics, being fought by a disarmed population who cannot organize, as any node of organization will be immediately spotted and either co-opted or destroyed by the occupying power. Therefore, sixth generation warfare becomes a form of distributed warfare, relying solely on optics. Its tools are narrative warfare, attacks on legitimacy, compelling the occupying force into decision dilemmas and the heavy use of social media. Now, a decision dilemma, just in case you are not aware, is where you force an adversary into making one of two choices, both of which are bad. Much of this idea is borrowed very, very much from the left, the new left that was prominent in the 60s in America, notably Saul Alinsky. I am not a fan of leftist tactics, but you have to fight the war that you are in, not the war as you wish that it was.
Exactly.
Sorry.
That's one of the main reasons why I talk about what I do so much, and why I wanted to have this stream series, is as much as it might call to our hearts to do Fed posty things or to want to join a militia, that's like bringing a banana to a gunfight. Like, we're just not in that kind of circus right now. We're not on that kind of battlefield. Those options are not viable for us. So we have to start being more intelligent and doing intelligent things to protect our people and to fight back against our enemies.
Not only that, armed resistance is actually a boon to the occupying force, as I will detail in a bit. So the disarmed population essentially resorts to the mobile phone and social media as the only weapon that they have left. In a sense, this is a form of zeitgeist warfare, because all opposition to the regime is banned or subverted prima facie. Counter-narratives must form through suggestion, innuendo, code words, common language, and cultural groupings. I'm sorry if there's clipping and stuff like that. My internet is being very, very weird. Let me just check that it's still going. It was working fine before. I don't understand. Maybe it's a mobile provider. I do apologize, everyone. Right. What kinetic actions there are will take the form of protests, flash mobs, vandalism, and other below threshold forms of conflict. Relying on Alinsky's ideas, the primary objective is to get the occupier to lash out and thus damage their legitimacy, since the occupier in this case is also using optics and social media messaging to claim that they are occupying the country for the good of the citizenry. Thus, quote, the target's reaction is your objective. I believe Alinsky said the action is your target's reaction. But the objective is to make your target overreact. It is a kind of weird sort of psychological optics judo, as it were. In such an environment, traditional kinetic actions, such as assassination and sabotage, are actually counterproductive, since they play into the occupier's claims that the only people who oppose them are extremists. Every kinetic action will simply be used as a way to crack down more on the dissenters and pass harsher laws and sentences while demonizing those who resist. Thus, in sixth-generation warfare, the primary target becomes the dominant narrative itself. In a sense, sixth-generation warfare is like a distributed psychological warfare militia that forces the occupier into constant decision dilemmas. This is only really possible with governments who are trying to maintain control by claiming to promote morals that they do not really support. None of this would work against an occupier that blatantly and forthrightly used brute force for its own ends. These kinds of regimes are usually in the process of setting up a revolution, replacing institutions with low-grade ideologues. We could call this a pre-revolutionary environment. And for the record, I believe this is the kind of environment that currently exists, particularly in the United States and in many other countries in the West.
Yes, I would say that many places are already there in Canada, the United Kingdom, France, Sweden, Germany. I think a lot of us are already there.
Yeah. Always, the narrative of who is the victim and who is the oppressor remains the functional pivot for these operations. This is why kinetic actions in such an environment are so counterproductive. It is taken as a given that the occupier controls the mass media. Thus, any civilians or regime agents injured in kinetic actions will be used to justify the narrative that it is the regime itself who is oppressed, that the radicals comprising the opposition, quote, do not care about the suffering of civilians, etc., etc. The aim of sixth-generation warfare is to get the regime to fall through erosion of legitimacy and psychological warfare against the managerial elite of the regime. The ideologues who lead the regime will not be swayed by these arguments. But those who carry out their orders are vulnerable to demoralization, censure from friends and family, and other effects if the counter-narrative begins to take hold. For example, friends and family of those working for the regime, especially highly partisan organs such as the FBI, for example, will distance themselves out of either disgust for the aims of the organization or fear of being persecuted for, quote, saying the wrong thing, supporting extremism, or other such vague terms. You cannot coerce genuine friendship, and they will slowly be ghosted, only doing the bare minimum amount of contact needed to ensure they will not draw wrath by cutting contact completely. This is a sort of feature of tyrannical regimes, and is also a feature even in policing generally, even in sort of more relaxed regimes. The more sort of unjust a policing body becomes, the more Byzantine their laws become, the more inward looking these police become. They only have other friends who are in the police because the civvies do not really relate to them. They are uncomfortable around them. They never know if they might say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing, and get arrested by someone that they know. This is one of the problems when laws proliferate to the point where no one can understand them, and you would literally have to be carrying around a lawyer in your pocket to successfully navigate such a situation without breaking any laws ever. This is, of course, fundamentally unjust. The law is not supposed to work this way. The law is supposed to be simple enough that a person of modest intelligence could understand it, and it is meant to be based on moral principles. I realize that it doesn't always work like this, but there are degrees of this effect. As regime workers are frozen out by their friends and family, their contact with the population drops. Echo chambers increase, and the likelihood of missing critical intelligence accelerates. The goal is to bait the regime into deploying its kinetic force in a way that massively erodes their legitimacy in the eyes of the people they are ruling over, until the narrative that the regime is on the side of the people is completely undermined. This can then lead to mass actions, whether protests, election loss, presuming that fair elections are still possible, and malicious non-compliance from the population. The most important goal is to sow distrust and disdain in the minds of the population against the regime, so that the citizen sees the regime as weak and illegitimate, even if they cannot express this thought out loud. They will hearken back to a time before the regime took over, or alternatively to a better future, depending on the dominant counter-narrative. Equally important is to highlight instances of hypocrisy in the regime. For the more totalitarian a regime is, the less it can stand criticism, while at the same time the demand for rigidity of thought and claims of divine or moral legitimacy increase. The woke are increasingly using this framing, claiming the moral high ground by claiming to be for equality, diversity, etc., whilst at the same time engaging in actions that are partisan, exclusionary, and totalitarian. I think you wanted to say something about that, Yiz?
Yeah. The well, hold on a second. Are we to the I think I've lost my place because I was responding to someone in chat. I apologize for being unprofessional there. I had actually tuned out.
That's okay. I can keep going.
I had actually tuned out. What was it what's the topic that you just said? I might have something prepared. I'm sorry.
I was just saying that the woke are using the framing of sort of rigidity of thought, and
that was
claiming the
my
moral high
cue.
ground.
I'm sorry. Yes. What I have prepared for that is one of the things that's important to remember that we talk about with the Go Free method a lot, and we talk about just in general in pro-white spheres, is it is a fallacy to use the abstractionist language, the labels, the titles that anti-white, anti-Western people feed to us via the media, like woke. When you think about woke, what does it come from? It means waking up, being aware. That has a positive connotation. Wouldn't you want to be woke? Wouldn't you want to be awake and aware? So when you use the terminology woke, you're actually interfacing with hostile anti-white propaganda via the framework of the counter us narrative, the anti-white or anti-Western narrative. So when you hear things like woke or feminist or transgender or leftist or communist or these kinds of talk, it's really just an abstraction. And I don't think that we should use those. We should say the terms anti-white, anti-Western, anti-whiteism, anti-white animus, anti-Western animus, that kind of thing. Because when you use that language, you're cutting through their narrative and asserting our power words to build our narrative, to trump theirs. And so that's why I wanted to speak on the term woke and why I think it's bad for us to use it, because it has a positive connotation. We want to speak about those who are harming us, those who are against us, in a negative connotation. So don't call them woke, call them anti-white. Or if it's a feminist being hostilely anti-male, call it anti-male. If it's someone being, caustically anti your ethnicity, you can use that word, or say anti-Christian or something like that. The point of this is most of the time it's going to be just anti-us in general. So anti-white is your power word. So once you get used to analyzing this abstractionist language in the speech pattern of their narrative, the faster you can counter it and embolden not just your own mind, but everyone else listening. That's the function of the Go Free method, and why I think it's valuable to implement in all types of academic discourse. So I'll turn it back over to you, Chris. Thank you for reminding me.
I'd just like to shout out to Roger Cook in the YouTube chat for mentioning Luke's and the Faces of Power. I had totally forgotten about Luke's, but I was really, really into him at university. I think I'll do an episode on that. Thank you very, very much for reminding me. Right. Where were we? Under sixth-generation warfare, what kinetic actions there are will usually involve unattributable sabotage of complex systems, the source of which is often impossible for the regime to locate, as ideological rigidity causes them to recruit based upon political orthodoxy rather than talent. Thus, at the same time as the regime engineers a competency crisis by making political orthodoxy the primary attribute for hiring, it also faces stealth sabotage or quiet quitting from those who do not agree with regime goals and are unable to speak, yet must remain within the regime for financial or other reasons. And if you are such a person who disagrees with the goal of the regime, but must stay working for it because you have a family, you have my sympathies. Do not despair. It happens. Much like fifth generational warfare, the civilian population may not even realize that there is a war at all. Or if it is referred to, it is in oblique ways, such as a, quote, culture war. However, the tactics of removal of key anti-regime personnel from institutions through mass line actions, such as cancel culture, slowly bleeds into the entire society. The necessity to maintain a veneer of respectability for the regime narrative, whilst social media increases public scrutiny to levels never before seen in history, also drives rigidity of action and thought, as well as echo chamber effects that diminish not only the effectiveness of regime forces, but critical intelligence about the cognitive battlefield. In such a system, the regime will have constant eyes on the outputs and thoughts of their opponents, but they will be unable to understand them. New memes and ways of speaking will constantly emerge as ways to combat censorship. The banning of the N-word by BLM is an excellent example of this. Although the word itself has been banned, the actual real-world phenomena it refers to still exists, and indeed gained massive prominence at the exact time that the word itself was banned. This has caused a proliferation of oblique terms by which to refer to the phenomena for which the word itself has been banned. Keeping up with this proliferation requires a non-regime mindset, and for those in the regime to speak the language of its opponents, which is always a difficult task, but made increasingly hard by blanket assumptions, such as all of our opponents are stupid and racist, as well as low-quality intelligence analysis and over-reliance on tools such as artificial intelligence that are bad with nuance and will hallucinate answers. And just to say something about AI. AI is a very lazy technology. In a sense, it is a technology perfectly suited for the competency crisis that we are entering. Why bother learning about any of the principles of politics when you can simply get ChatGPT to tell you what you want to hear and to hallucinate any answers that it does not know? In my opinion, this is likely to cause a catastrophic fuck up by the regime at some point. Some critical piece of information will be overlooked. The echo chamber tightens. The understanding of their opponents becomes more and more cartoonish, less nuanced, and this will lead to critical intelligence failure, in addition to probably critical complex system failure, as those who could fix such complex systems are now ideologically opposed to the regime. The method of organization of the sixth generation battle space is that of the standalone complex or emergent phenomena, where there are very few active cells that have not been suppressed by the regime, and those that remain are immediately suspected of being subversive operations. Look at, is it Patriot Front, the outfit in the US that everyone believes are feds just simply because they show up. This is what I'm talking about. As opposed to the fifth generational warfare environment, where there are still groups of non-state actors capable of kinetic action. Under a sixth generational warfare environment, all groups that could push back are immediately suspected by the general population of being controlled by the government.
Yeah, which is kind of where we found ourselves now, because even if you look at an organization like Patriotic Alternative in the UK or Patriot Front here in America, it's easy to look at them and say, oh, what they do is glowy. Well, I know people in Patriotic Alternative. I know people in Patriot Front. Well, not personally, but I knew a guy that was in it for a while, and I spoke to him for a while. I met the leader guy of Patriot Front in Texas at a meeting that Jason went to. And I don't think that these people are just federal employees, but I also think that a lot of the actions they do are easy to conflate with what we know are federal agents and assets that do this kind of stuff. So that's what makes it, that's what thrusts our minds, for those of us that have been paying attention. It makes us be highly suspect of anyone who wants to go out into the street, do a protest, bash it up with Antifa or BLM or vice versa on their side. It makes us skeptical. So what Chris is saying here is, this is why violent confrontation, even if it's done entirely let's say free of tether from a powerful organization like the CIA or Mossad, people are still very reticent to get behind that, because anyone who's aware enough is very suspect of that, because of all we've seen the last 20 years. Like, we're very suspect of that kind of violence and that kind of direct aggression, because it's been used to put people in prison hundreds of times. So that's why what Chris is saying is a new kind of generational warfare, where even those of us who want to fight are sort of shell-shocked and skeptical of any real physical action, because of how compromised and controlled everything is when it comes to that kind of behavior.
Yes, but also my point is that the general population is skeptical of any group that forms in opposition. This is a very, very Bolshevik tactic, by the way, to deliberately set up counter groups in order to entrap people and to essentially demoralize the population and make sure that there are no ways of effectively organizing. However, at the same time, due to the spreading of the counter-narrative, all anti-regime forces will interpret the actions and motivations of the regime through the same lens. Once the clandestine goals of the regime are accurately determined and elucidated, the spreading of this information will make predicting the regime's long-term goals much easier. This also limits the actions of the regime, as they struggle to come up with plausible reasons for doing terrible things in the face of many people who have said, this is the next thing the regime will do, because the regime's goal is actually this. The anti-white narrative is an excellent example of this, as the regime flails to come up with convincing excuses for excluding whites from positions of power. And eventually they will have to just come out and say it, but that is very, very bad optics.
Mm-hmm.
In such an environment, the actual goals of the regime are generally kept secret, because it would undermine their legitimacy, and if they were revealed, could also result in mass desertion of regime forces who believed they were fighting for such vague moral terms as social justice or equality. Although a large amount of psychological warfare and brainwashing goes into preparing the mind of the managerial elite, a truly drastic event, such as the Holodomor in the USSR, can signal a death blow to the ideological position of the managerial elite, precipitating regime collapse. Additionally, attempts to cover up mass deaths by the regime and lies about source or consequence will greatly increase the sense of disgust and hypocrisy among the general population.
If I
This
can
is
pause you there,
basically,
oh, sorry.
sure. I was
If I
just going
can,
to say, this is basically what's happening with the COVID vaccine.
yeah, I was going to say if I could speak on it. This this is a very important point for me to speak on here because when it comes to quote unquote waking up the normal people, I get tired of that phrase, but there is an energy of that does happen when the lies become too dissonant with reality. Regular people who don't want to care start having to care. They start noticing that everything is a lie and their lives are being messed with. COVID's the lies about the vaccine, the lies about COVID, the lockdowns, all of the deaths and sicknesses and problems after the vaccines and boosters that people are having. Even regular people my mother knows that are in their 70s, they're now calling BS on all kinds of stuff and they're actually talking about it. I've never seen boomers talk about crap like this before, ever. Like, especially people of my mother's generation. All they want to do is talk about church and God stuff, or who's playing what at the county fair and that kind of thing. But they're actually talking about how they're being lied to and people they know are getting sick and dying because of that crap that the news told them to take. So it's a very good point, and especially the lockdowns. I know people that aren't boomers, that are younger, some even younger than me, that had their careers, their businesses destroyed because of lockdowns and this COVID crap. They pay attention now. They know that something's wrong.
Yeah, it is. This is the problem with the regime having secret goals that are very, very different to the professed goals. Sooner or later, the population notices. And the more that people can sort of predict these things, actually, I think I talk about this in a sec, the more this hypocrisy stands out and the less people believe the regime messaging. Under the very effective two-party system, there is always an opposition to pick up the ball and continue running with the true goals of the regime as soon as one party is exposed. There is increasing awareness of this phenomena, which is leading to a delegitimization of the system as a whole, as opposed to the more usual delegitimization of one party after a few years. In a sixth-generational warfare environment, information exchange, social media, and mobile phones are the weapon of choice for the anti-regime forces, which are not only interspersed among the civilian population, as in fifth generation, but they actually are the civilian population. Although there will be committed anti-regime actors, some may drop in and out, some may find crucial information and post it on social media to be picked up by information distributors. Some may find crucial information and pass it on social media to be picked up by information distributors. In such an environment, therefore, information control becomes the main tool of the regime to suppress dissent, and censorship laws proliferate. But this leads to a trap, as the regime must claim to be for freedom of speech whilst simultaneously suppressing it, claim to be for human rights while simultaneously suppressing them, etc. Groups of information aggregators thus become extremely important in such an environment to keep up constant counter-messaging to the regime narratives emanating from regime-backed media organs. However, due to the importance of information infrastructure to the regime, not only to carry on day-to-day business, but also to keep a watch on their opponents, they are again caught in a decision dilemma. They cannot shut down the internet, but they also cannot allow it to be free. Thus, the proliferation of terms such as, quote, hate speech, which will allow them to target regime opponents without having to resort to force majeure tactics such as internet shutdowns, which are extremely bad optics absent some kind of large-scale kinetic action. Doing a coup in such an environment is basically impossible, not only because of the total surveillance and impossibility of organizing, but because of the distributed nature of government. Destroying the legitimacy of the regime in the eyes of those who must carry out its orders is the only feasible tactic.
Yeah.
That's the end of part one.
I think that's an important thing to linger on a moment, because most of my work that I do is about speech, cultural engagement, building community, and all of this hinges on having a positive narrative that we can interact with. Because if we don't have a positive narrative, we're going to lose no matter what. This is why Chris and I both agree that you shouldn't spend your time trying to quote unquote wake up your friends and having them read stuff about World War II and realize what they've been lied to about, and trying to make them think evil Jews are behind everything. Because while a lot of that is true, it's not a positive narrative. It's not something actionable that you can generate positive culture around. It's only something you can use to radicalize someone and make them want to do acts of violence or disengage from culture. Both of those things are negative for us. They don't lead to success. And so what we're talking about is engaging, using social media, using your friend network, using things at work even to be counter narrative, to be a counter revolutionary. That's what we're talking about. And this is why I think that the Go Free method and the language therein is invaluable for doing this kind of thing, no matter where you are, church or work or otherwise. So those of you out there, I want you to have hope, because everyone can engage in positive culture and help build a positive ethnic, racial, cultural fabric together. And that is how we will triumph over this evil regime, is that. Go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
And might I point out that one of the big failings of the regime at the moment is they have no positive message. All of their messaging is negative. Particularly for those who are white, there is no positive message. The positive message of universalism that used to sort of be the staple of the regime, probably best summed up by, it's a small world after all, the Disney thing where everyone would live in peace and harmony is now gone. There is no positive message, and negative messages, negative framing will only get you so far. People tend to tune out. You need a positive message. It is not enough just to keep telling people that they are racist, that they are bad. It's not going to work. You need some kind of positive message, some kind of positive zeitgeist to get people to engage, or they just simply switch out, or as Yiz was saying, they start to get like very, very angry. It is a positive message, a positive framing that we are trying to put forward here. And in such a vein, second part, well, what can you do? Because I am not a fan of just describing the thing and then saying, oh, yeah, well, everything's screwed. What are you going to do? That's only half the thing, right? A doctor, a good doctor, does not merely diagnose your symptoms. He also offers you suggestions for how to improve and deal with those symptoms. The trick to narrative warfare is to accurately discern the framing of a narrative to see where it will go next. This is made much easier if the actual, as opposed to professed goals, professed root of the narrative can be discerned. So if you can figure out like what the real narrative is as opposed to what they say it is. For example, it is very clear by now that diversity just means fewer whites. This allows for much more accurate predictive power, which can be used to sway the normies around you, possibly. People remember a correct prediction, especially if you make a few in a row. If the person you are speaking to keeps asking you why the government is doing something, but when you tell them, they reply that it must be something else, but they don't really have a good answer to their own question, telling them frankly and making a prediction is a powerful tool. Although they may not accept the premise that it means fewer white people, for example, make a short-term prediction based on your more accurate knowledge of the core narrative. The person will usually recoil, but then when it happens, they will remember, sometimes. COVID is an excellent example of this. Although it is easy for the committed regime defender to claim that's just coincidence, you were lucky on purpose, it must be some other explanation. Sooner or later, for most people, reality will intrude, as it has done with the jab, for example. As frustrating as it can be, violence is totally unproductive in such an environment and is a boon to the regime, which means they will try and deliberately provoke counter-regime forces into overreacting or using violence. It is much more effective to use these same tactics against the regime. The It's Okay to Be White campaign was an excellent example of this, forcing the regime to overreact to what is a very mild and innocent phrase and highlight the partial nature of the law. However, be warned, exposing the partial application of the law will not negatively affect groups with a high in-group preference or a supremacist framework, since they believe that it is proper for the law to be applied partially and for them to get extra benefits, regardless of the effect it has on society at large. In terms of suggestions, learn communications skills. Learn how to shoot or edit video. Make band music. Write band books. If you know editing, help a creator. Learn OBS. Learn Rumble and Odyssey. BitChute is a bit sussy. It's based in the UK, and I'm not sure I would rely on it. Get a VPN, a good one, such as Mulvad. Pay for it in crypto. Learn how to use Bitcoin and Monero. Monero especially will be a very useful tool. Avoid exchanges. Use non-KYC forms of crypto buying, such as BISC or Open Monero. This is complex stuff, and not everyone can understand it. If you do understand it, help your friends. Make memes. Make art. Film what is going on around you. Participate in the information war. It is the most important war going on at the moment. The narrative guides the actions of billions of people. What they believe, what their instincts are, paves the way for the next part of the regime's plans. As soon as you see a move being prepared, counter-signal it, mock it, write about it, raise awareness about it, explain it, make jokes about it. The funnier the better. As always, sarcasm is your friend. Read regime literature. Understand regime plans. All of it is on the internet. Learn to decipher regime words and phraseology. Translate it into language everyone can understand. It's not a central bank digital currency. It's a digital prison where the government controls all of your money 24/7. That is a message people can understand. This is a propaganda war, but it is very important to tell the truth. Lies for the sake of exaggeration is a bad policy and is not needed. It will erode your legitimacy, and things are bad enough. You do not need to lie. If you are not willing to step into the breach, then support those who are. Learn to use technology. Learn the TCP/IP stack. Learn cars. Learn farming. Learn philosophy. Learn critical theory. Make dissident websites, dissident exchanges, dissident bot farms, dissident real farms. Just have some kind of purpose. Learn or do something. Do not wallow in the threat of the endless night. Even if we lose, will you go to the gulag knowing you did nothing? That you just sat on your couch while everything went to hell and you did not even try? We must try. We must resist, even if all hope is lost. This is what men do. This is what the truly noble do, and it is not as bad as that. There is a good chance they will lose, and this chance increases the more people simply go around them who understand and resist their goals.
Exactly.
And always make more memes. You may fire 1,000 shots before one hits the target, and memes are exactly the same. Learn meme culture, learn GIMP or Figma. Try a bunch of stuff and see what sticks. Let it give you purpose. Learn AI. Learn Stable Diffusion. Everyone else, learn crypto. Try and have a side hustle paid for in cash or crypto. Try and use either crypto or barter with friends, at the very least cash. If you have a good or service you can sell to a friend, take cash, give them a discount. In short, replicate the partial preference for those in your ideological community. Everybody else is doing it, and they are not going to stop. Since forming an actual society is forbidden, and overt displays of white interest are also forbidden, identify each other through subtle signs or language. Every Polak can tell another after talking with them for 10 minutes, you do not have to do anything Fed posty. Just privilege those people
Chris, did we lose you? Uh-oh. I think his net might have crapped out.
Fuck me.
Chris?
How much did we lose?
Okay,
You back?
only about 10, 15 seconds. So go back a couple sentences. Sorry. You froze and your camera's still frozen.
Are we back?
Okay, I can see you moving again. All right. So just
How much did we lose?
only maybe 15, 20 seconds. Just skip back a paragraph and take that again.
Okay. Everyone else is doing it, and they are not going to stop. Since forming an actual society is forbidden, and overt displays of white interest are also forbidden, identify each other through subtle signs or language. Every Polak can tell another after talking with them for 10 minutes, you do not have to do anything Fed posty. Just privilege those people. Give them discounts. Buy from them in return. Be like other ethnic or ideological groups and look after your own.
Mm-hmm.
No one else is going to.
And I will close by saying the way that we can add to this is by engaging with as many people as possible and meeting them where they are. There are a lot of people in your life that if you start trying to talk to them about revisionist history around World War II or dispelling the lies of the Holocaust or trying to get them to realize that 90% of everybody in leadership position that pushes A, B, or C belongs to a certain small hat tribe, you're going to push away a lot of people. No matter how correct you are, you need to realize most people you can't meet with that kind of rhetoric. But you can meet them on the ground they're on. Maybe they're on the ground of their business has been destroyed. Maybe they're on the ground of their son or their daughter got canceled because they were just white or they were just Christian. So they lost a scholarship. They lost their career. They lost their internship. Find how you can approach people and get them to engage in this war that we are in. And then, if you really care about telling them the rest of that stuff, it will come in time naturally and they will know. So that's why I say you got to meet people around you on the ground they're on. Figure out what is currently going on. You can engage with them on, whether it's something in sport ball, whether it's about something on TV. Maybe they are sick and tired of noticing certain trends happening in their favorite show. The people that are in your life, you can find ways to get them motivated, to get them activated. And then you can start building culture around that. And like Chris said, if you have the possibility to, always buy your products, get your services, use your dollars that you earn with people that are of like mind, of like ethnicity, of like race, that you know are not part of this evil regime or that you think are not. Do your absolute best to keep everything as insular and ethnically, racially, religiously focused on your tribe as possible. Because the rulership is blatantly anti-white, anti-Christian. It hates the West. It hates everything that we've ever stood for, and it wants us all gone. So obviously we can't rely on them. We have to rely on ourselves. Well, how do people do that? How do you survive as an ethnic group under a hostile regime? You have to rely on each other. And we have to, anything that we're going to have in the future, we're going to have to build together. And so let's build the future together. Let's make it not suck. And like Chris said, I think you should be white-pilled. Look at how horrible and sloppy the psyops and the lies have gotten in the last 15 years. Look how terrible and open and ugly the stupid actions of the regime and all of its stupid mouthpieces have been in the last 5 years. They're all ugly, degenerate retards. And they're not going to be able to maintain the complexities required for total regime control very long. And the underlings that they have to conscript, they're going to be tired of that. Like Chris said earlier in the presentation, people that work for the government, people that work in these corporations, they're going to be sick of it. And they're going to know, well, I can't talk about the things that I see that are wrong or I'm going to get fired. So they're going to be looking for outlets. They're going to be looking for places to vent. We can give them that. And that's how we can take power inside institutions as well, especially universities eventually. But anyway, I've blathered on long enough. We have some community engagement to get to.
Wait! I just wanted to address something quickly.
Sure.
Like,
then let's go to Embiggen View while we wrap up. Then.
Okay. Everybody else is playing ethnicity or ideological favoritism. The universalism that defined the greatest part of the Western civilization, I mean, I don't know, you can argue about that, but the universalism is gone. Everybody else is playing partiality under the law. Everyone else is playing favorites. Everyone else is playing ethnic or ideological groups. Under such a system, it is suicide to continue universalism because you are on a massively, massively unlevel playing field, right? You just, in my opinion, it must be accepted that universalism no longer applies, and you must privilege those people that you agree with ethnically, civilizationally, ideologically. And I do not think that it's all about race. I really do not, because I tell you what, I would much rather live next door to my based Bangladeshi friend than I would to live next door to some white Antifa guy. So it is not just about race. This is about culture. This is about civilization, values, religion, right? Up until this point, we lived in a sort of a universalist society where you could just assume that the law would be applied to everyone mostly equally. Of course, these ideals are never perfect, but now this has broken down. Every single other group has in-group preferences, and whites are the only ones who are not allowed to express it. Additionally, the building of these kinds of networks will be very, very helpful as society degrades. We may get a situation where rather than collapse, everything just keeps getting crapper and crapper and crapper. It becomes harder to find stuff. It becomes harder to find anyone who knows what they're doing. It becomes harder to find anyone to like fix things. The more people that you know, the more networks that you have, just commercial networks, will help you. Someone was asking in the chat about Monero. Monero is very, very good because it is basically what most people think Bitcoin is. Monero is completely anonymous, unlike Bitcoin, which is pseudo-anonymous. So Monero hides all transaction details. It is completely anonymous. Be wary with Bitcoin. It is good, but it's all of the transactions are in the open. And if you can be linked to a wallet address, then all of the activity associated with that wallet address will be revealed. Also, very, very, very important. If you sign up to a crypto exchange and you have to give them a real ID, know your customer, they know it's your crypto. This is particularly true of Bitcoin. If you sign up to an exchange and you buy a bunch of crypto under your real name, you can follow the path of that Bitcoin literally anywhere. So Monero is a very, very good way of getting around this. Even if you buy Monero off an exchange, it will be obfuscated where it goes. But far better is to instead buy from things like local Monero, BISC, these decentralized networks where you do not have to give KYC. This is complex stuff. Again, if you know this kind of stuff, teach other people about it. Maybe we should do like a thing on this at some point. And always, please, support your creators, support your friends, support those who you are ideologically aligned with. No one else is going to do it. No one from the other side is going to help you, restore Western civilization. They hate it. They hate everything about it.
Yeah.
So we must band together, friends. We really must. And hopefully, even if there's no collapse, we can weather the storm. And if the storm is terrible, we can at least help each other make it a little less dreadful.
Well said. Well said.
Thanks.
Well, shall we move to the paid chats and say our goodbyes now then? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to start with the ones that came in before the stream. We're going to start over on Odyssey with Jeffrey Mill. Jeffrey Mill, we've seen in your Habiting chat as well. Jeffrey just says he stopped by in Odyssey and dropped $10 US. Thank you so much, Jeffrey. He says, good evening, Newsfist and Yiz the Eunuch. Probably can't stay because I have to go to bed, but wanted to support the stream. Well, thank you very much, Jeffrey. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey. I really appreciate it, mate. He's a regular on my other stream.
I've seen him before. And also on Odyssey tonight, we have Violence is Life and Return of the White Warden dropping a Libre token. White Warden leaves a fire emoji. Violence is Life says her usual spiel, which is life is unrelenting war, society is a game, and nature is ruthlessness. She is.
That's so metal.
Oh, she's very metal and Viking. You would
Yeah,
like her.
clearly.
She lives not too far south from me. Hopefully, one day I'll get to hang out with her and her cool family. But thank you for the support as always, Vil. Let's see. Let's make sure. I need to make sure I don't leave out any of the pre-stream donations. Okay, here we go. We have from let's see. This was the first. This was last week. So E. Essington, thinking that we were going to stream last week, dropped us a tenner. But she did not leave us a message with that. So thank you, Miss Essington. I appreciate your dollars, and I always appreciate your regular support. And the other pre-stream donation we had was a nice one from Judge Lot. I don't know this name. If Judge Lot is someone who wants to go by a different name, he didn't say in the message. All he said with his $50. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Was thank you for all of your time and effort that you put into Empire of Lies. It's awesome. Well, thank you, Judge Lot, and thank you so much for your $50, man. That's a big donation. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Really appreciate that.
And let's move to Cash App now. And we've got, here we go. We have another $50 from Judge over on Cash App. Thank you so much, Judge. I really appreciate it, man.
Thank you so much, mate. Dude.
He says, thanks for all your time and hard work on the Empire of Lies series. Well, man, we do put a lot of work into it. Chris is doing a little more work than I am because he does all the reading and the autismo, and then I just sort of help get it all together. But we both put a lot of effort and love and care into this, and I hope it shows. Thank you so much.
Thanks, mate. I really appreciate that. That's awesome.
That's an awesome donation. Thank you. Over on still on Cash App, we have from White Student Transmission, one of my moderators. He sends $5 to say that just to say sending white positive energy, and puts up his pro white fist. Thank you so much, man. Always appreciate your support. And I will be talking to Chris here about what we've discussed, and hopefully in the next week or so we will all have a sit down together and talk about things. Jason Kuna, the No White Guilt guy, sends in $6. Thank you so much, friend. He says, really
Thanks,
enjoying the show, Kip. Thank you, Jason. I knew you'd like this one because this is in your bailiwick of what you talk about a lot. I hope that you would like this one. All right. Let's see. Let me make sure we're not missing anybody else. We have something from Haretha, Mother of Victory, on Subscribestar. She sent in $40. Wow. Thank you so much.
Dude,
Haretha didn't send in a message. She just wanted to support the stream. And so she sent us $40. Thank you so much, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
And again, a lot of you that send in money to support, I know you're parents. I know that you have kids growing up in this hell. So, and like we said, we hope that you can use this material to educate your children once they're, smart enough and aware enough to be keyed into what's going on. That's why we've done our best to, to keep dirty jokes out, to not cuss much. Like we're trying to make this as educationally friendly as possible, even though, me and Chris are old salts at being dirty. So sometimes it's hard, but anyway.
Well, especially given the times, it is hard not to want to get a bit spicy description. But yes, we try and keep.
It's hard not to cut loose and just name the small hats for 30 minutes and stomp our feet. But you got to take the high road, man. You got to take the high road. All right. Well, I don't think that there's anything else. I'm going to refresh all the sites one more time before we get out of here, just to make sure we're not missing anyone. Nothing new on Cash App that I can see. Nothing new on PayPal or Subscribestar, and no new page chats there. And also, I have been informed that Entropy wasn't actually on the whole night. So let me refresh it and see why it logged me out. It's saying that I never even started the stream. That's, Well, this is what I get for trying to link it to Rumble, I guess. I'm used to linking it to YouTube. It just straight up didn't work. So... Well, it's showing that we didn't get any donations on Entropy anyway. So I guess Entropy was just a goof or a goose egg tonight and didn't stream at all. So sorry for those of you that like to listen on Entropy. I know that's very few of you, but anyway, we have come to the end of the stream. I'll take down that shield banner there. This was a good episode. And if I have not been my usual sharp, witty self, I apologize. I am getting over an ear infection, and I am on some antibiotics that are making me sort of feel bad, and I haven't been able to sleep well. So my clarity of focus is not what it usually is, and I apologize for that. But hopefully by next week, I'll be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and back with it. So, Chris, I know you'll
And,
be back from vacation before long, and you're going to be in your normal place next week, right?
yes.
Okay.
No, not for a few weeks yet. I do
Oh, a few
apologize
weeks.
for my
Oh, okay.
for my potato internet, but we're working on it. We're going to try and work something out for next week. I do apologize for the bad signal. My other stream was
it only got
tonight.
bad twice, and here's the thing: we tested it and talked for 30 minutes before the stream, and it was crystal clear and perfect. And since I'm doing the bulk of the streaming here with my high-speed cable internet in America, I don't know why there was the problem during the stream, but hopefully we'll get it worked out.
The feds.
It's definitely it's the anti-white mafia. They're on to us. All right.
Yep.
Well, I appreciate all of you guys who tune in. Thank you so much for sharing the stream and helping us grow. We didn't quite hit 100 live viewers this week like we have the last few weeks, but we almost did. We got to 91. So that's pretty good. So thank you to those of you who are listening on replay. Please, I ask all of you, share these streams personally. If you like the material that we make and you find it useful and actionable, share it with your friends. Send it via email, send it via PM, post it on your social media and say, hey, really good, positive, useful, intellectual stuff going on here. Listen to it, learn from it. That really helps us grow, and it definitely helps me because this is the only thing I do for a living now. So every dollar that I get really helps. So thank you, all of you. We'll be back Monday night with the Discordant Dragons, and Chris will be back Monday with more Happening TV, and we'll definitely be back next Thursday night with more Empire of Lies. Love yourself, love your people, and put your own kind first, and we will weather this long storm together like we have many times. So stay white, everybody.
Thanks for everyone. Good night.
Good night.